Welcome to the December 10th, 2024 City Council work session. Before we dive in, do want to make the public aware that the mayor was not able to be with us this evening, so I'll be sitting in as a presiding officer. I'd now like to turn it over to City Manager Benda to walk us through the agenda overview.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of City Council. Today before you, under your work session, we actually have a guest. Guests are from AEP, Rob Mann, and his team. Rob is here to my right. Rob is going to be one half of the replacement of Mr. Larry Jackson. We all wish Mr. Jackson very well. Rob will be the regional support that talks to you about the operations for AEP. There'll be another piece to the team that will talk to you about the governmental relations. But Rob and his team are here today to talk to you about the proposed small modular reactor in Campbell County. They late last week had a public engagement with folks at Lynchburg Regional Business Alliance up on Luckadoo Avenue, and apparently all went well. And tonight is their opportunity to engage you here. And so we're very excited for Rob and his team to be with us. Also, we have Brown Edwards, who are our audit team that will present the ACFR, which is hard for me because I've called it another acronym for so very long, and it's been since changed. But the ACFR, and I'll do my best with that, will be presented by Brown Edwards. He'll go through that review, and that Donna and her team to help position and kind of take you through it. It's something that we do annually, and so very excited for the relationship that we've had with Brown Edwards through the years. So wonderful here, and Rhonda's here as well. So Rhonda's going to be with it as part. And then to follow upon at least a few months, maybe even a year ago at this point, we had made an investment. The staff had proposed. We had seen an increase in vacancies, particularly in the police department. There were as many as 33. And with your help and support, we have really made a dent in that. And what was 33 became 11, which was a tremendous decrease. And through attrition and other, we're probably more like 14 right now, but we're continuing to make progress. And Dr. Holly Jennings, who put together the strategy around what we would propose, which is a public safety recruitment and retention component, is going to walk you through the efforts, what those look like, and what we have seen as borne fruit from that. And then you will recall that what we position are business item briefings. Those are those items that we brief you on the topic itself. We position you to understand well what's happening so that at a subsequent meeting, not today, when you go to vote upon it, you will have been briefed, heard about it, asked some questions of staff, and if we need to go back and make some changes to it, that we're prepared to do so. Then follow upon that roll call with a closed session. And with that, Mr. Vice Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Benda. First on the work session agenda item, introduction to Mr. Mann from AEP on upcoming projects. Welcome.
Good to be here. Pleased to meet you, Council. Like Winter addressed, I'm the new External Affairs Manager for Appalachian Power. I'll be reporting out of the Lynchburg Service Center. They're on Mayflower Drive, covering the counties that Larry Jackson had, and then some additional counties, Bedford, Franklin counties that Amanda Cox was covering too. So pleased to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to everyone today. Our topic we wanted to talk about today is as Winter said, the SMR, Small Modular Reactor. What we've announced is the siting announcement for that project. The SMR, on November 14th, it was announced by the company that we had identified a potential site. Happens to be in Campbell County, about 10 miles from Lynchburg. It's near Joshua Falls, the Joshua Falls boat ramp, BWXT. It's off Mount Athos Road. We are in the early site permitting process for that with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. One of the things that made this site attractive for possible SMR was its proximity to existing infrastructure. The 765 kilovolt station is there on this property. This property was purchased in 1977. It's about 670 acres. Most of that acreage is in Campbell County. There's about 60 acres that is in Appomattox County. It does have resources along the James River that may be useful to this type of project for water also. And just to make it clear, we are applying for an early site permit, not an announcement to building a project, just the site permitting aspect of it. part of the benefits and opportunities of this, we did have independent analysis of the SMR facility located in this Lynchburg area. This would bring, if a plant is constructed here, about 140 jobs that would operate this plant. These would be good paying jobs in the area, which would bring benefits of that revenue to the area also. During the construction, there could be anywhere from 300 to 600 jobs during that time frame. That would be for a period of about 4 years of those activities. And the study also did show about a $20 million annually increase for local businesses in the area. So the next slide, it shows the overall site in proximity to Lynchburg. It is affixed along the James River, if anyone is familiar with the Joshua Falls boat ramp. So we are coordinating with Campbell County, as well as City of Lynchburg, Amherst, and Appomattox. The outline of that red area, that shows the 672 acres. And if you notice the county line there, it shows that little bit in Appomattox County. The Joshua Falls substation is located around the triangle in that red area there. Our next slide is going to be an aerial map of the project area. And if you notice in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see BWXT a little bit in that site. So that kind of gives you the aerial vision of where this is located along the James. So this roadmap, it kind of shows the processes that we're going to. The steps that we've taken, we went through in a site evaluation, looked at numerous potential areas throughout Southwest Virginia, and the Joshua Falls site, this was the one that was ultimately chosen for a potential site. In November, we had the actual announcement, and then just last week we did have the first open house. Our next steps as they go along, we'll submit we'll continue our cultural studies and keep working through that aspect as we get ready to file the permit application early in 25. That's about a 4-year process to go through those steps. We are also co-aligning with that, applying for a grant that would help offset some of the cost of the permitting process, which is rather extensive. So we're going through that process now. That grant will be filed in January of 25. And the construction schedule, once we get in, should the permit be approved, construction would be slated to begin non-nuclear site prep in 2027. That's about a 4-year process. And then from 2031 through possibly 2036 would be the actual construction of the plant. And that's assuming all permits line up. So we're looking at a 10 to 11-year process for this thing. Next slide kind of shows the oversight. So there's a lot of agencies that we'll be working with, continue to work with as we go through. The boat ramp, I just want to bring that up. The Virginia DWR is operating the boat ramp on the APCO-owned property currently. That will remain open. There will be some times for the interim, it will remain open. There will be some construction efforts that we may have to close it temporarily just for safety purposes. But we are working with the state on finding another location for that boat ramp. As we understand from community input, that is an important asset to the community. So we are working with the state to locate some other property for that boat ramp. Going back to the community engagement, this slide references the open house that was held on the 5th. Overall, it was a positive event. There was a good amount of support for the project. We did interface with a number of the landowners that live in the close proximity in Campbell County and Appomattox County that did have some concerns. And we've been talking to those folks. They have the opportunity to voice their opinion. Comment cards were left. We have a website out and up and available for them to continue to make comment. And at that website, they also have the ability to be notified of project updates. So we will continue to work with the local community and provide input and field their questions as they come available. One-on-one meetings, and that's actually taking place today. This morning, we had some storefront hours where folks could come in and speak with us and ask some additional questions if they didn't feel, if they couldn't make it to the open house or just wanted some additional input about the project. So our next steps here. Going to be continuing to talk about the ongoing studies, not talk about, but continue to work on the ongoing environmental and cultural studies. Continuing out the engagement with the Board of Supervisors, administration, surrounding communities. And I kind of went over this already, I'm sorry. APCO plans to file in 25 with the State Corporation Commission and proceed with the early site permit. So that is a 3 to 5 year process, just to remind you. And there's my contact information. Like I say, Larry Jackson has retired after 30-some years of service, and I look forward to working with City of Lynchburg going forward, and feel free to reach out at any time with any questions. So. And with that, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mann. Any questions from council? Thank you for your presentation. I'm looking forward to seeing this roll out, and please do let us know if the city can help you expedite some of that permitting process
We will
with
be
advocating.
I appreciate
accordingly.
you mentioning that. We will be reaching out. Yes, we will coordinate some additional meetings in the very near future to discuss some of the needs of the project and what the city may be able to help us with some support. So
Certainly. Thank you.
thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Next on the agenda is fiscal year 2024 annual comprehensive financial report and related reports. Ms. Donna Witt.
Quickly. This is Chris Banta. He's a partner with Brown Edwards. They've served as our external auditors for, do we figure 20 years? Something like that. Always do an excellent job. And he's here to present. Chris represents the governmental section of Brown Edwards, so he's really the expert on governmental auditing. So thank you.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you for the introduction. And it's good to see everybody. As Donna mentioned, I'm Chris Banta. I'm the audit partner with Brown Edwards. And today we're going to go over the results of the audit. If you've seen the annual comprehensive financial report, it's a 255-page document. It's extremely complex, and that shouldn't be a surprise considering all the activities that go on at the city, the schools, the transit, and Greater Lynchburg Transit's included in there, and even the Business Development Center. There's a lot that goes on in these financials, but my goal today is to go over the results of the audit. But I just want to commend your team, first of all, because this is the culmination of a 9-month process. So we started working with the city back in March, scheduling, talking about when are we going to come out and do work on field work. And when I say the city, I'm also talking about the schools as well. That's a joint process, even though there's independent accounting departments. Throughout that 9-month process, there's work done at our office, whether it's just planning, talking about what's been going on in the governmental industry throughout the United States, what's been going on in Virginia, what's been going on in Lynchburg. All of that's important in designing our processes and our audit. And then we engage in field work throughout the summer and then into the fall. And then it really culminates today with going over these the results of the audit. So I do want to emphasize, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out today, tomorrow, anytime. You have a highly competent team here. They prepare this document. Only about half our clients actually prepare this document. But I'm always happy to help with any questions you have as well. So we'll talk about the different phases of the audit. There's about 4 different phases of the audit. And the first one is the primary purpose that you engage us as auditors. And that's to give you an independent opinion from a CPA firm on this financial statements. These financial statements include fund statements for all of your activities, the airport, transit, sewer, water, solid waste, all of those things. It includes all those. We give you an opinion on the financial statements and the 200 pages of footnotes that follow. I'm happy to report that the city received an unmodified, unqualified opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that we can give to a set of audited financial statements. I do also like to emphasize that we start every year with the expectation that we're going to get to a clean opinion at the city, just like we do with any audit. However, that's not always a given. These accounting standards continue to get more and more complex each year. With local governments, we're seeing a lot of turnover, so that also causes some challenges. So don't take it for granted that you're always going to get a clean opinion, but we do expect that here, and we're happy to report another clean opinion this year. The second phase of our audit is the fact that you are a local government entity, and under governmental auditing standards, we have to report directly to you on certain matters. First of all, the first matter we have to disclose to you are anything we determine that were severe findings related to internal control. And the second part of that audit phase is anything related to state of Virginia compliance. If you've looked at the document, you did see that we did have one internal control finding this year related to audit adjustments and some reconciliations over at the schools. Some of those items were significant. They were items that we identified we did adjust to get to that clean opinion, but they did rise to the level from a size standpoint, not a quantity standpoint, but a size standpoint that we did have to report that in this document. That's not something we've had that's common. Most of that is related to turnover we've seen over the last couple of years, and we would not expect to see that in the future at the schools. The third phase of our audit is the fact that you do receive significant amount of federal funding. You received about $54.5 million of federal expenditures and federal awards this year. And to put that in perspective, some of that relates to the airport, some of that relates to social services, a significant amount of that relates to the schools. On a rotational basis, we have to select and test those programs. We call each of those different awards a program. On a 3-year basis, we have to test each of them once every 3 years. And during that test, that phase of our audit, we're performing a hyper-focused audit on each of those programs that we've selected this year. This year, we tested Medicaid, adoption assistance, continued spending and use of the coronavirus funding, both at the city, and then the ESSER funding, which also ties into a lot of that COVID money over at the schools. And of that $54.5 million of federal expenditures, we tested about 50% of that this year. As part of that testing, each of those programs is subject to specific testing, both on internal controls, meaning do you have properly designed processes to make sure that you're spending it properly or giving that money to the appropriate individuals or businesses or whatnot, but also have you designed those processes and are you following them? And then we test those and make sure that you are doing that and have you report no findings from an internal control standpoint. We're also required to test compliance to make sure that not just that you have processes and policies, but are you actually following them? Have your transactions, are they supported by the fact that you did follow those grant agreements, and have you report no findings there as well? And then the last phase of your audit is the fact that you do manage and run a commercial airport, and every passenger has to pay an additional fee every time they buy a ticket called a passenger facility charge. Because of that, and because you charge those fees and you run a commercial airport, we have to perform a compliance audit focused only on collection and use of those passenger facility charges. We subject that to internal control testing and compliance testing that the Federal Aviation Administration gives to us that we have to test. And happy to report no control or compliance findings there as well. Also, we've talked about results, clean opinion, one control finding, clean federal awards compliance opinion, clean passenger facility charge opinion. I also am required to communicate to you if there are any hurdles that we had to overcome when performing the audit. Sometimes when you start an audit, you might have an expectation of a clean opinion, but sometimes what you receive when you start might require significant audit adjustments, as we had at schools this year, just to get to that clean opinion. Sometimes there might be disagreements with management. There might be situations where management wants to get a second opinion with another set of CPAs. Just anything like that, I'm required to disclose to you if we had any of those hurdles we had to overcome. And other than the journal entries, the adjustments at the schools this year, very clean governance communication there as well. So that concludes my results, my report on the audit. Happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you, sir. I at least have a question before my colleagues. Can you give us a little bit more of an understanding of that finding you had and a little bit more background on it? that one at the beginning of your presentation, you said you had one concern that you don't expect in the future.
Oh,
but-
for the schools? So there were certain, when we received the audited trial balance, the trial balance that their financials to audit, certain balances weren't reconciled yet. Certain balances required assistance from us to get to the reconciled balance. Some of them were related to some cash reconciliations and I think some self-insurance liabilities. The cash item is things that they should be doing monthly, and we don't expect that to be something that continues. The self-insurance liability, some of these things are true ups you only do once a year for the audit. And so sometimes when we come in, we have to help. If there's been a gap or something's not been reconciled, we've not seen that in the past. It just happens to be that this year there's some turnover in some positions, and so we had to step in and help with those to get to the clean opinion.
So would you say, in your opinion, that the reasons for those things popping up was directly because of the turnover?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, you could look back on findings over the last 20 years, and it's just few and far between we've had findings either at the city or the schools over those items.
Thank you. Does anyone on council have any questions? Thank you very much for your report.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilman Helgeson?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you had lots of things up there. I thought we were just talking about the school portion. You did have some material weaknesses in the schools. I believe you had in the back.
That's what I'm talking about right there. It's related to audit adjustments and timely reconciliations. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there were some other things that you weren't, I'm trying to find it. It's a long document, but there were some items that you said that you're in preparing for the next audit. Are they being prepared for the next audit, I guess?
So talking about the findings, what happens now, I guess is your
Yes,
question.
yes.
So every year when we go to plan for our next audit, first thing we do is look at what were the findings from last year. So we'll look at those school adjustments, and there should be a letter that you'll get that actually shows you the actual adjustments. We apply additional audit procedures in subsequent years focused on those adjustments so that we know that they won't happen again. And we do revisit them every year. So this year, I think that finding was a repeat. We did see some improvement on timely submission of grant reimbursements, things like that we had last year that improved this year, that were adjustments last year that we didn't see this year. So the nature may have changed, but it was a repeat finding. But that will be part of our planning and our risk assessment going into next year. We'll say, what were those exact adjustments? And we'll talk to the team at the schools and say, what are you doing? And if you look at their response was very thorough. They're going to do training. They have a plan, but we have to verify that plan, in fact, worked going into next year's audit. So.
You're with it, and I know you look at making sure that the numbers are accurate and correct. It was interesting to see, I'm glad that we have an auditor because you can get some of the numbers that we haven't been able to get.
Mm-hmm.
I've been asking for how many people have worked at the schools for a long time. And I see that it's gone up like several hundred over the last couple of years.
You're looking at the stat section in the back?
Yes, yeah, the
Yep.
stats section, which is quite remarkable. And so I'm glad that we have these documents. There's also some other items that again are I guess you're verifying the veracity of it. That last year we had an anticipated unassigned fund balance of about 22 million, and it came in about 78% higher.
Which fund was that?
The unassigned
In your general fund?
the
here at the
general
city?
fund, the
Okay.
fund balance. So we had an anticipation of like 22 million, and it came in like 40 million, which is good that we didn't spend it, and that's policy. But I'm glad that we can actually see these numbers because that's a very large increase. It's about a 78% increase over what was budgeted. And so glad we can see that. Thank you for that. So with the school situation, you mentioned about turnover. I guess that's specifically in the financial services.
That's our focus.
The finance area.
Yeah, we're looking at if you think about, there's been a number of people who have left that position, various positions in the finance department over there, and we've had new folks. When you have new folks, they're learning how these financials are. Sometimes that's improvements, and sometimes you see those improvements. It just takes a year or so to see how things work. We do have some fresh faces over there. I do know that. Yeah, we do have new faces over there. And when you have new faces, sometimes you have challenges that you have to overcome.
And it seems like there's been, a few positions that have been kind of constantly somewhat rotating in and out for quite a period of time. Obviously, when you're looking at auditing, you're looking at procedures and practices and whatnot. In the auditing that you've done across Virginia, are there always distinct departments between like the governing body, their finance department, as well as the school finance department? Is there always a distinction?
You mean the
can there-
primary government, the city versus
Yeah.
the schools? Yes, there's almost always some delineation there. Most of it, so what I see sometimes is that the fiscal responsibilities, the treasurer has to manage the cash and investments for the entire entity wide. But sometimes what I'll see is procurement for large items will be handled for both parties at the city. Cash reconciliations, cash management, fiscal responsibilities, and maintaining citizens' tax money that is managed by the city, and some of that's allocated to the schools. What I will see is that human resources is usually separate. The accounts payable function, at least at the approval section, not the actual disbursement process, is separated. A lot of that is separated because there are different nuances between managing a school system and managing the departments of a city, whether it's public safety, public works, an airport, water and sewer. There's different nuances. There's different reporting mechanisms they have to do, just like there is with social services. So even internal in the city, you've got different folks in social services who have to perform and pull together their laser reporting on a monthly basis. That's totally different than what you do over at the airport. But yes, we do see that very commonly. So,
And I'm just thinking that there could probably be a lot of areas, as you mentioned, several, that could be somewhat coordinated together, but still having a delineation because we have two department heads on the city side and the school side. And what we've seen, as you clearly noted in your audit, with that turnover. And so we haven't had that turnover on the city side. On the school side, there's been lots of turnover. And I'm glad that this one wasn't as bad as I remembered one probably 5-6 years ago, where there was a lot of things. And it was just line after line.
Yeah.
And with that, it'd be not a good thing to see that again. So the more that I think we could kind of help control or bring those things at least closer together, but yet still, having a line of demarcation, I guess, would be helpful.
I think one thing you find too is that if you think about it, think about the volume and number of employees that the school system has compared to the city. It's probably, I bet you they have 40% more people working at the schools than the city does. And so you think about that, and then I've had calls with folks who say, we'd like to move that all over to the city human resources to handle. And then it's like, well, they're actually doing a bigger burden than they would on their own. So it's a challenge. And the turnover, I'll tell you, this is right now, I've been doing this 24 years. This is the first time where I'm seeing long-term finance directors retire, and public finance, governmental finance, there aren't folks who want to do that. So one thing that you're blessed with on the city side is having that, maintaining that team, because that goes a long way, and it shows. But it's tough. It's tough out there. We're seeing clients that for 30 years got their audits done on time, and now they're 2 years late, and it's tough.
I think another element, I'm not sure if I saw it in here, but I know that the city, the school system was backfilling. They had some grants for employees that they ended up using for long-term employees with a short-term grant. Do you?
I'd have to look at our work papers to figure that out. I don't really know that off the top of my head.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Council questions?
Other questions?
Thank you.
Yep.
And thanks for being here and kind of going over this with us. It was interesting because you mentioned the thing just a moment ago about the employees. And when I'm looking at the tables on here, table 28 is showing 11.6 for the city. And that includes, airport and water and sewer and all that. And then 18 for the school system on this table 31. So the question that I have is, how do you get to those numbers, the number of employees? Because
That's provided from their human resources department. To be honest with you, that section is something, so those are not actually items. If you read our audit opinion, we don't audit those numbers. That's actually something we're not required to audit. It's something that we look over to make sure it kind of makes sense. But that all comes from human resources. And then I believe the city team pulls together those statistical tables. So.
Yeah, because that's a big jump. You know, when you go from 1,317 employees in the school division in 22, and you add 201 in 2 years, that's, you know, I was talking to, I think our deputy city manager's not here. I think I may have mentioned this to you too. That's like another Lynchburg Fire Department in payroll.
Yeah.
So that's just something we're going to need to look into, see what happened there.
I don't think that's uncommon though to see if you look at other school, I mean, more safety at every school, there's more to do, more needed for students. You know, and there was a lot of money there from the COVID grants over the years that funded a lot of parts of that. So, and that money is going away.
And I think that goes back to what the councilman was talking about a minute ago when he asked about the temporary funds, because, you know, if they were using those temporary one-time funds with the COVID funds to hire full-time employees, and which are ongoing obligations, that presents a situation where we're going to have to account for that now with those funds being gone. And I just think we need to tighten it up. That's all. But I appreciate your time and I appreciate what you put together for us. Thank you.
I will say that the COVID funding, any incremental COVID funding, one thing I talked about how federal grants, we have to test them once every 3 years. Our hands are tied on the COVID funding. So we had to audit that. So we would look at, we would pick a sample, not do a 100% test, but we would look at things such as how are they spending this from a payroll standpoint? Is it in compliance with the rigorous requirements of those grants? So.
Yeah, because I saw, I mean, there's also a dashboard for those ESSER funds on the Department of Education website. You can break it down by division, and it's showing that 70% of the funds in Lynchburg City Schools went to pay and employee benefits. So those are one-time funds. It was, I think, 43 million-ish was the ESSER fund, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah. And 70% of that went to, you know, what should be ongoing expenditures. That presents a challenge for us.
There was similar funding over at transit agencies where they got just a kind of blanket operating funding from COVID. And then that was around from 2020 to 2023. And so we're seeing that dry up a little bit, or a lot. It's not there anymore. So same thing. And you look at that COVID funding was such a massive amount of cash to hit every local government's bank accounts with stringent requirements, but also some flexibility a little bit. And so it's all gone. It's all going away. It has to all be obligated by the end of this year, I think. So
yeah, it was interesting because I looked at how did Roanoke City Schools spend their COVID funds?
Yeah,
and they spent almost 50% of it on capital. Mm-hmm. Right. So if you're getting one-time funds, what a great idea to invest in your long-term capital.
Air conditioning units, clean air conditioning units, things like that to help with their capital. Yep.
And Lynchburg City Schools just didn't do it. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Again, thank you for your presentation.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, item number 3 under work session agenda items, public safety recruitment and retention update. Dr. Holly Jennings, I'm giving you time to walk up. Okay, there you go. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Vice Mayor and Council. I'm very excited to be here with you this afternoon. I have exciting news and updates to give you guys. I was here almost exactly a year ago. I believe it was December the 12th of last year. When I came before you at that time, we were kind of facing a crisis in recruitment in our public safety sector. And we had to come up with a plan, and we did. We came up with a good one, and you guys invested some money into that, and I have results to share with you today on how that's going. And I'm really excited to say that it's going very well so far. The International Association of Police Chiefs just released their 2024 report, and they do this about every 5 years. And nothing shocking in that report. They found that due to increased resignations and retirements and difficulty recruiting, that nationally police departments are facing operating deficits of up to and over 10%. And that they're finding that this is putting a great stress on the officers that are still there doing the job. And that's what we were looking at a year ago. They offered some strategies in this report, And those strategies were to loosen grooming restrictions, AKA beards. We're going to talk about that in a few moments. They talked about increasing starting salaries, which you guys have done already, so go Lynchburg. And they talked about developing wellness programs. So a lot of the strategies that were released in the report are things that we are already either doing, attempting to do, or about to do here in Lynchburg. So I was very excited to see that. Last year, we were at 30 LPD vacancies when I came before you, and we're going to talk in a moment more numbers. I'm building up, right? You see that? I'm building up the excitement. Let's talk about the strategy first, and we're going to go through every piece of it. It focused on both recruitment and retention. Currently and historically, we have not seen a significant trend in resignations, but recruitment has gotten significantly harder. Thanks to you, your investments have seen historically low resignations and huge progress in recruitment. So starting with employee satisfaction, if you recall a year ago, we did a lot of things around employee satisfaction, including doing an employee survey with all of the officers at LPD. We wanted to make sure we knew before we invested money in what would help us retain the officers that we have, because you can remember me saying that there is no replacement for a well-trained, experienced LPD officer. So one of the first things we got back from that survey was input regarding the new police station. And because of that survey, we are implementing lots of things that were specifically asked for, a lot of things around the gym that were very specific requests. The gym's going to be great. It's going to have kind of a CrossFit component plus a weightlifting component and other things that the officers specifically asked for. We are also going to have an employee decompression space. It's basically a space when officers get off their shift, they can come and use that space to decompress before going home to their families. What we realized a year ago when we were doing research around this was that was something that was really important to incorporate into a police station for the wellness and health of our officers. We also wanted to make sure we had spaces available for officers who are coming off a night shift and then having to go to court. Sometimes there's a several-hour gap between when they get off duty and then when they have to report for a court hearing. And we wanted them to have somewhere to either rest or relax or decompress prior to having to go to court that was not sitting in their car in the parking deck at the courthouse. So I am happy and proud to say that the Lynchburg Police Foundation has provided all of the funding or most of the funding for that decompression space and all of the things that are going into it. So that is something that even our community is getting behind, and we're really happy that that is happening. So the second part that we talked about, which was really high on the survey that we got back, was the take-home police car program. And as you guys know, y'all worked that out a couple of years ago. The problem has been getting the cars. The auto industry has gone crazy. I will give you an example. We got notification on Friday that a car that we ordered in FY22 has arrived. So a couple years later, we've gotten it. The other part of the issue of getting the take-home cars out for people to take them home is getting them upfitted once we do get the cars. And we had one vendor in the area that was doing that for everyone. And so when the cars were getting backed up and not getting here in a timely fashion for everyone, not just us, it then made that vendor get backed up and getting the cars upfitted. So we now, our fleet director, Mr. Charles Kramer, and the police department have worked together, and we now have 3 vendors that we're using to try to expedite that. So the goal is to have take-home police cars with officers in them taking them home this spring. So we are excited about that. And then the third thing on there was a lot of feedback around a couple of things, uniforms and grooming policy. And so recently, I am pleased to announce that our employee advisory group at the police department developed a policy, presented it to the leadership team, and our police chief approved for officers to be allowed to have beards, short, neatly groomed beards that they can have while they are working. So there was a lot of excitement around that. I don't know if you saw the Facebook post, but there was a lot of excitement about being able to have beards. It is hunting season. People like to have them when they're out in the woods. Okay. The next thing we looked at was procedural changes. We utilized what's called fast track academies. They're called option 5. These are for out-of-state experienced officers that are wanting to come work in Virginia. Instead of having to go through a 6-month program or academy to be able to be an officer in Virginia, it's a 6-week program. It's shortened. We can get them out serving the community faster, and we have been utilizing those. The other part of that is our personnel and recruiting team went through all of our standards for our hiring policies to make sure we were up with best practices. They looked at everything from how we initiate the first letter all the way through how we do polygraphs. Are they too long? Are they too short? Just to make sure that what we are doing is current with what other agencies are doing. The next thing we did was we worked on expanding our outreach. So we had a full-time recruiter, Ms. Elsa Ramirez. You may have seen her all over social media as well. She pops up everywhere. She attended, along with other folks in the personnel and recruiting division, they attended over 40 events in 5 states outside of Virginia. They held 6 Super Saturday events and numerous other events around the state and the city of Lynchburg. So really expanding where and how we're trying to find folks, both within our city, within our state, and geographically around us. The second part of expanded outreach is we put out an RFP for a marketing consultant to come in and kind of help us with that outreach. We had over 20 businesses respond to that RFP, which was a lot. We weren't sure how many people were going to be interested in specific police recruiting marketing strategies. And so we went through all 20 of those proposals. We interviewed a ton. It was pretty much 2 days of interviewing companies. And we went with a company called Epic. And we're really excited about Epic because they, the only thing they do is public safety. So they're not a marketing company that does public safety on the side. They're a marketing company that specializes in public safety recruitment. They are used nationally, but here in Virginia, they've been used by departments such as the Fairfax PD and the Virginia State Police. And they have a record of bringing in results. And that's what we liked the most about them when we were interviewing and looking through the organizations, is they had a record of providing results. So we are very excited that they're on board. They were just in town filming. You will be able to see that production here fairly soon. And what they like to do is come in and create a story that is unique to the department they're serving. So we're very excited about that coming up. The next part is we looked at compensation strategies. One part of it was recruitment bonuses. We were already kind of doing some recruitment bonuses. We were looking at, how much were we offering? Were we being competitive? And since last year, we've hired 24 new officers, 6 of which were experienced officers. And we had an 88% acceptance rate for the recruitment bonus. Now, for the recruitment bonus, when you accept it, you're committing to 3 years with the department. The retention bonus, again, no replacement for an experienced, well-trained LPD officer. We had 105 police officers that were eligible and 11 emergency communication officers. That's our 911 operators. 74% of eligible police officers signed the contract and 91% of eligible emergency communication officers, and they committed to 4 years with the department. And so that means 74% of the department has committed to staying here with us. So that's exciting news as well. Along that same line of information, the number of officers that have left LPD has significantly gone down and continues to go down. I think a very important piece of data to share with you was that in 2021, and if you think about all the things that were happening in the world in 2021, especially around policing, we lost 27 officers that year. So far in 2024, we're down to 15. The last time it was that low was in 2009 when we had 12. So all this year, we've only had 15 people leave the department. That is a 7% turnover rate, which is well below the national average of 10%. So just a little more data for you. This is taking a look at the number of vacancies that we've had. You can see in December of 2023, we had 30, and that was when I was before you last year. In June, we had that number down as low as 12. There is an ebb and flow to this based on hiring patterns that are specific to the police department. We hire for folks to enter into academies. The academies start in July and January. So you will kind of see the ebb and flow of hiring patterns kind of go with that schedule. And we are currently sitting right now at 18. We have an academy that starts in January. Our average number of vacancies in 2024 was 16. So if you look at the whole year, compared to last year, the average number of vacancies we carried in LPD in 2023 was 27. So we are knocking that on down. And I think that brings me to the end and what's next. So what's next is making sure that we implement that marketing strategy. You guys will be seeing that story here soon. Continued discussions with the employee advisory group. The employee advisory group, now that they have solved the grooming, facial hair issues, they are going to start looking at uniforms. We currently have officers that are testing the load-bearing vest. We talked about that quite a bit the last time I was here. And they are looking at fitness workout schedules, especially when they get to the new department and have those awesome new gyms. So they are continuing to work on things that are important to them. That's why it's the employee advisory group. We will also be assigning, as I spoke earlier, those take-home police cars that will be coming after the first of the year. And then, of course, they will be moving into the new police station. So super exciting things coming up. And I cannot do this without thanking a few people while I helped put some things together and supported as much as I could. Folks at the police department did the majority of this work. Obviously, the police chief has really been at the forefront of all of this. His staff, Deputy Chief Ken Edwards and Captain Lisa Singleton, they're both over the P&R department of the police department. That's the personnel and recruiting. They've been involved in every aspect of this. The P&R department is Sergeant Sydney Olivier, Officer Alan Cottrell, and Officer Elsa Ramirez. They have done a lot of work. And then Captain Joel Hinckley, his life has been that new PD station. I think he eats there and sleeps there and dreams about it. Captain Tim Clemens was over the employee advisory group and was the one that was brave enough to go in front of the chief and say they wanted to have beards. So shout out to Captain Tim Clemens. And then Captain Nick Leger has been organizing and working and making improvements with our emergency communication officers in our 911 center. So big thanks to all of them. They did a lot of hard work to get this where it is, and we can see that it's paying off in the numbers, and I was just happy to be a part of the team. So I'm happy to answer any and all questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Jennings. I must say to you and the chief and the staff, this is exactly the kind of result we were looking for. I think it also sets an example and a foundation for not just the Commonwealth, but the rest of the country about what prioritizing police can do, and the numbers back it up. So thank you. I thank my colleagues for all of us getting behind this path. Let's keep it up. This is really good stuff. So, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Vice Mayor, before we move into questions, I will say that I get the privilege and honor of greeting each new employee that comes into the organization. And I will say many of our newest police officers are coming as far away as California and Washington State. So it is those recruitment efforts, we're not just seeing simply local, it's really a national approach. So that is the targeted approach to saying that the city of Lynchburg is receptive to policing and also supportive of its police department to include a brand new police headquarters and also give you a very competitive wage, makes people drive long distances and come invest and stay here in the city. So it's really, really important. And I'm very grateful to each of you that the investment that you made.
Let's make beards great again. Anyone else? Councilman Hogelson?
Just one thing. You know, obviously this has been pushed for quite a long time. And it just, you were talking about all these wonderful things and how broad this reach was and how fantastic almost every element was for improving public safety for the citizens of Lynchburg. And as I'm hearing that, I was reminded, or just in my head, I was thinking about a year ago when we unveiled the budget, there was a press release from the Attorney General that said Lynchburg is cutting public safety. Anybody ever know where that came from? I mean, that was, we've done everything completely the opposite of cutting. mean, that's why people are coming from California and Washington, because where they, they say, hey, we're going to defund the police. We've fully funded and more than fully funded. I mean, we're doing take-home cars. We've pushed for headquarters. We pushed for more pay. We pushed for studies to actually listen to what is important to our officers and what isn't. And, so anyway, it's just, I'm glad to hear that, and that should be broadcast, but it was interesting. This is about a year and a half ago. And I don't know where that ever came from, but it did come. I tried to get to the bottom of where it came from, never heard where it actually came from, but obviously it was a total lie compared to what we've done. So thank you, Holly.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Councilman Wilder?
Long sweep. Thank you for the report and information. I really appreciate the efforts. I'm especially excited about the recruiting efforts for the veterans, the specially targeted presentation you're doing. That is remarkable. I hadn't really heard of that before. So I really commend you on that. Is there any other consideration to see if you see the increase in staff members as far as the diversity of staff members, or any challenge of how it's looking more like our community, reflect our community more, or what efforts or intentional efforts are your staff doing to just see about that?
Yes, sir. So we were very intentional this year about making sure that we were getting more into the community, and specifically making sure that we were being diverse and where we were reaching out. And so for the first time, we had an event at VUL, which I was really excited about. And then we also went to some very specific community events. So let me just give you a couple of examples. We did a pop-up event at the Rampage Championship football game to try to get the youth in our city to know what it is that our officers do and that you can have a career here at the Lynchburg Police Department. We went to the anniversary of the Job Corps Center. I could go on and on and on, but it was over 40 events that we did locally, but we diversified the events we were going to, and didn't go to some of maybe the traditional places that we've always been. We went to those as well, but we added in a more diverse population of folks to try to attract people who live here to work here as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Mischins?
So question about, when he mentioned veterans, we're talking about veteran police officers is what you guys are.
Yes, so both. We entered into an agreement with the military as well. It's called the PAY program. It's where we specifically work with the military to try to recruit veterans. And we are also talking about veteran/experienced officers. So both.
Is that through the VA, or who's that through? What's the program through?
I think it's directly through the military. It's MOU we entered into. I would have to get more information on the specifics of who they signed that MOU with, but it's directly with the military.
Winter, are you familiar with TAP, Transition Assistance Program, and all the stuff that goes on at all those bases in Hampton Roads where you came from? When those guys are
I know that we had different bronze, silver, gold, that not unlike Ban the Box for folks who had been incarcerated or something. We also had as an element, if you were a veteran, you were given a certain ranking as far, or you were put forward as an applicant, but not TAP.
About that, there's Transition Assistance Program is what is out there, and I'm sure there's probably one or two people you could pick up the phone and call.
Oh yeah.
Where you can actually get yourself as an employer into some sort of program.
Mm-hmm.
So the city could, and it wouldn't even just be with LPD, to where if you meet some kind of criteria that as people are coming off of their enlistments and, retiring, whatever it is, that essentially could highlight the city of Lynchburg as a potential employer for veterans to them. There's been programs out there in the past for that. So if I were you, I'd reach out to whoever because I'm sure Norfolk's they probably actually have a Veterans Affairs department within the city, right?
They do.
Yeah. They'll know exactly what I'm talking about, but that would be just another opportunity for you guys to get another candidate pool that would be probably interested in these positions, because I'm looking forward to that being zero.
Yes.
I appreciate the work you've done, and let's finish it out. But I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for all your hard work.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next section of the agenda is business item briefings, first of which is the 2712 Concord Turnpike on 1118 and, I'm sorry, 118, 120 Spinoza Circle, rezoning residential subdivision, which will appear before council for action on January 14th, 2025. Ms. Rachel Freshcheisen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The purpose of this petition is to allow the construction of single household detached homes. The proposed rezoning would allow the homes to be built on smaller lots than what is allowed by the current zoning. Planning Commission recommended approval of this petition at their meeting on October 23rd. Our comprehensive plan currently recommends low-density residential use for the property. These areas are dominated by single-family detached housing at densities of up to 4 dwelling units per acre. The Tyriana Pleasant Valley Master Plan, which was adopted by City Council on May 24th, 2022, recommends supporting the development of diverse housing types for various demographics, including younger families and aging population groups. It also recommends promoting the sustainable development of public and privately owned vacant land. This rezoning would support that goal by allowing single-family homes on smaller lot sizes. The submitted concept plan indicates the construction of 21 single household detached homes. One additional home may be constructed on that parcel where you see the stormwater management facility, depending on the actual size of how big that needs to be. In summary, the proposed development would provide housing at desirable densities and reflect good land use principles and responsible use of our limited land resources. The proposed development would adjoin other single-family homes and align with the neighborhood plan recommendations. Again, this item will return for City Council public hearing on January 14th.
Thank you for your report. Quick question on my part, if I may. So you had mentioned something that sparked my interest. You had said that it's a rezoning and there's also a CUP on it as well. Is that what you said?
Not this one.
Not this one, that's, all right. So you had said that there's a stipulation about how large a lot needs to be for a single-family home. Do you have that knowledge offhand, or do your colleagues do? Because the question is, when was the last time we evaluated that? And would lowering that sum be something we can do to spur single-family development in the city?
So the R2 district that is currently there requires 10,000 square feet of lot area and 75 feet of frontage. And I include the frontage because that plays a big part of how the lots lay out. And the R3 district could go as small as 4,000 square foot per lot with 30 feet of frontage. So the purpose of the petition is to give the developer more flexibility in the layout and the number of lots they could get. So I do believe there's some merit to exploring our zoning district standards. And, as council has expressed over the years, you want to see more single family. How can we facilitate that and make it more appealing, more financially feasible for developers to go and pursue these things. And that is actually probably the chapter we're getting ready to discuss in terms of the comprehensive plan with Planning Commission. How can we be more flexible and facilitate that while respecting, the neighborhoods that we already have?
I know it's a little bit off topic, but for future reference, it's something I'd be interested in exploring. For any other reason, if we want to keep tax rates low, we need to find ways to increase the tax base, and this is certainly a way to do it while also targeting the housing, the need for housing. So something I'll be interested in. But any other questions on this project specifically? Councilman Taylor?
What are the average costs per lot, per house on this? Is it going to be affordable? Is it coming under affordable housing?
So they are not at the design phase yet. So I don't know that they have established a target price range for the homes. We can definitely ask if they've got a number in mind. You see a couple of examples on the slide about or that are by the same developer across the street on Concord Turnpike. So you see the kind of style they are looking to achieve here. Of course, final designs may differ a little bit, but we can ask about the target pricing.
Thank you.
Councilman Howison, did you have a comment?
This is a great project. I mean, and two, this is something that I think would be easily absorbed in Ward 3 rather than townhome after townhome after townhome complex. What we're looking at here are single-family detached homes, and going with the R3, at least it was looking at the R3 that says, hey, we're going to look at the different lot size. You said going from 10,000 to 4,000 instead of 75 foot, frontage, it's going to 30, which is fine. What it is, it's allowing, and it seemed like you didn't have to change the future land use map because it's the same number per acre, around 4. And so this is a perfect thing that should be pushed and promoted in Ward 3 and Ward 4, where there's been nothing but apartments and condos and townhomes that are all attached. This is nice. You get even a little elbow room. It's not like the normal 10,000 square foot lots, or it's not like a 5-acre lot. What it is, it's a little bit of elbow room, and they look nice. And what it does, it doesn't erode the character of the neighborhood. As you mentioned, it correlates with the neighborhood that are detached homes. We have some things tonight and next week and another discussion for packing in more townhomes off of Leesville Road, off of Ward's Ferry Road. I mean, these things are nice, and it helps to build the tax base because you're actually putting in houses. So they didn't have to set this up like a planned unit development. And so, which they could have done that
That would have been another option to achieve a slightly higher density, but that's not what they chose to do here.
Yeah, and they chose, I mean, I think this is a great project. Different than the projects that are coming, the next project you got coming up and one that we have coming up tonight. Because this respects the character of the neighborhood. It didn't go from an R1 to an R4. It just subtle change that really wasn't even much of a change. It sounds like what you're saying, that the reason that they went from the R2 to the R3, it didn't change the maximum amount of density. What it did is allowed for the single-family detached homes to have a different size of the lot. Is that a smaller footprint of the lot? But still having that same approximately 4 units per acre, as opposed to, 10, 11, and 12 that normally happens when you cram in a bunch of townhomes. And so I think this is a great project, looks nice. And did they proffer I know they had a few different proffers in here.
So the proffers relate to the number of units. They said it would be a public street with public utilities.
Yeah.
And they excluded a few uses that are allowed by CUP, like private recreation facilities, art galleries, fraternal
So
organizations.
things that would be allowed in an R3 with a conditional use permit?
Right,
Just
but they
by-
proffered those out to say, that's not
Not
the
doing
intent here, we're just doing the single family.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you for the information. I'm so glad to see this. This is an untapped resource in our community, so I'm glad to see a developer. Now, I'm not familiar with the developer. Have they developed other properties in our community?
I don't believe he's done a project of this scale, but he did build these homes that are located right across Concord Turnpike
Okay.
near this development.
Oh, yes,
So
yes.
experience, but maybe not to this level in the city that we know of.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And he's also done some projects in Buena Vista, on Buena Vista Street. That's
Excellent. Excellent. I'm so glad to hear that. I really appreciate that because I know we were looking for things. Now, I was trying to look through the notes. Did the citizens have any comments in reference to the project?
I don't believe anyone
hearing.
spoke. Yeah.
I know it's a part of the master plan that we discussed some time ago. I'm just in line with that. Again, I'm so glad to see this finally found a developer to come into the area and make the investment. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councilor Missions?
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. And this is a great project. One question I have for you, I'm trying to find it in the notes. I can kind of see it on the plat on here, but is that right that the setbacks are going down to 5 feet on the sides?
The side setback in the R3 district is 5 feet, yes.
Okay, so that's also going to give us more wiggle room in those
Right.
lots with that setback. That's pretty. That's elbow room, but it's a single family lot. So this is great. Appreciate that they're putting this forward. I'm going to support this. We need more more options like this. And this is definitely something we should be pushing forward with.
Anyone else? Quick question, is this an area that we have sewer or no?
So water and sewer is available to the site. Of course, they'd be constructing an extension of that with the new street. Because of the topography challenges for sewer in the Tyriana area that we all know of, wastewater would be handled via a sanitary force main, which means that each residence would have what's called a individual grinder pump to carry the waste uphill where it can feed into the gravity sewer.
Again, this item will appear for council action on January 14th, 2025. Thank you, but I believe you're not going anywhere. Next item is Wards Ferry Road future land use map at 3142, 3146, and 3145 respectively. Rezoning conditional use permit and townhome development. It will also appear for council action on January 14th, 2025. Again, Ms. Rachel Fresh-Exon.
Thank you again. As you stated, the purpose of the petition is 3 actions to allow the construction of 18 townhomes, 1 duplex, and associated parking. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this petition on October 23rd. Council may recall that the petitioner for this project had previously proposed 24 apartment units here in a 2023 petition. They ultimately withdrew that before City Council's public hearing. They initially wanted to develop townhomes here, but they did not have enough acreage to meet our zoning ordinance's 2-acre minimum. So they had pivoted to apartments, then ultimately withdrew that petition after the business item briefing. They later received a variance from our Board of Zoning Appeals on that minimum acreage requirement and are now again requesting townhomes. The future land use map recommends a neighborhood commercial use for the 2 larger properties. These areas consist of office, retail, personal service, and restaurant type uses that are scaled to be compatible with immediate neighborhoods. The petitioner proposes to amend the future land use map of those parcels from neighborhood commercial to medium density residential. These areas are more small lot, single family detached housing, duplexes, and townhomes of densities up to 12 units per acre. The future land use map already recommends medium density residential use for this small triangular parcel, 3142 Wards Ferry. The existing B1 and R2 zoning for these properties was established with the city's sort of original zoning ordinance in 1979. The Board of Zoning Appeals approved a variance on May 30th of this year to reduce the minimum acreage needed for a townhouse development from 2 acres to 1.934 acres. Access to the proposed development would be from Copley Place, which is a small street connecting to Wards Ferry Road just prior to its intersection with Timberlake Road. The transportation engineer noted that left turn movements in and out of Copley Place would be unsafe, and the Copley Place should be limited to right in and right out movements only. Therefore, the right in, right out access is suggested as a condition of the CUP. It's also worth noting that a by right development, such as an office or restaurant in this location, would likely be subject to a right in, right out access as well. The current future land use map and zoning would facilitate commercial development on the site, and this land use may be viewed as more appropriate due to its close proximity to Timberlake Road. But the properties have never developed into any form of commercial use as far as we know, despite the fact that they have been zoned that way since 1979. The proposed townhomes would serve as a transition between the commercial properties on the opposite side of Copley Place and the single household residences on Adams Drive. Again, this item would return for a city council public hearing on January 14th.
Any comments or questions? Councilman Mischins, then Helgeson.
I'm not seeing, was there a traffic study done for this? Do we know?
The transportation engineer requested a trip generation. That's where they found the right in, right out would be the best solution for the development.
That is it's a hot area when it comes to traffic. I mean, it's,
It is.
you know, I don't know what else we can do or what else we can ask for to solve that problem, but you know, it's just a tight spot. I know living at the other end of Wards Ferry Road and traveling that often, people come flying across Timberlake. That's one thing. We absolutely increased capacity there with that roundabout coming off of the expressway, but it's also created a situation where people are actually coming across through there with a lot of speed. The right in, right out, there needs to be some kind of physical barrier there for sure to make sure that that's happening. Right now, I'm not inclined to support this just because I think it's a lot to put right in that little corner. But I think leaving that in commercial would probably be the best choice.
Councilman Helgeson?
The one that we just talked about was 22 single-family detached homes on 5 acres. This is 18 on 2 acres, less than 2 acres, and not detached, not single-family, but townhomes. And again, I believe that there's been enough high density, there's been enough changes on the zoning, because this is a B1. And the only way they can do all of this high density is to say, well, we're going to just not care about the neighbors that are there and just change the zoning based on what somebody asked for. If there's a bona fide, something that was, good for the neighborhood, be inclined to support it. This one, you're looking at the traffic that's already there. A few years ago, there was real trouble with the traffic because it wouldn't connect on Wards Ferry Road across from 501. And fortunately, I pushed for having that interchange where you can actually connect and drive straight across. With those going across and over and turning, it made it just terrible. But when you look and see all the traffic already on Wards Ferry Road, you see the density in this area. Now isn't the time to add more places and changing for more density. I don't think that's healthy for the neighborhood.
Anyone else? Again, like before, this will appear before council action on January 14th, 2025. Moving to the next item, number 6, 742 Leesville Road, conditional use permit for K-12 private school. Rachel, one more time.
Thank you again, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council. The purpose of this CUP petition is to allow the use of an existing structure as a K-12 private school at 742 Leesville Road. Planning Commission has recommended approval of this petition at their meeting on November 13th. Subject property contains approximately 6.7 acres, and the future land use map recommends an institution use. These include our religious, educational, and other nonprofit entities in the city. The proposed use of the existing building as a school aligns with this designation on our flume. The property is zoned R1 Low Density Residential District. Private schools are permitted in this district upon approval of a CUP from council. The subject property contains a 2-story church structure, which has about 15,000 square feet. If approved, the church would be repurposed as a school for up to 70 students. No exterior improvements are proposed or needed at this time. So the proposed use should have pretty limited impact on the surrounding area and would fit in with the existing corridor. Again, returning for city council item action on January 14th.
Councilman Helgeson?
This one, I think that church has been out there. There's been a few different groups that have, a couple different church denominations that have been in and out of there. And man, they've made a lot of good improvements there. They got good parking. And now utilizing this as a private education facility, I think it's fantastic. It's already there. It's using space that's already there. Instead of having all the traffic in and out on Sunday morning or Wednesdays and Sunday afternoons, and it'll be school, but you're looking at, I think, what did you say, Rachel, 70?
Correct.
Yeah, roughly 70 children. I think the church, it had to have been a good 500-600 that it would hold, probably more than that.
And according to the director of the school, a lot of the students actually come on public school bus transportation.
Okay,
So
yeah.
even fewer trips than 70 individual drop-offs.
And the church, I think the church building, I don't know what you have, if you have the numbers for that, but I bet 500 to 600, something like that, the occupancy. It's up there. It's a big place. They got lots of rooms in other places already there. They don't just have the sanctuary. They have all sorts of rooms already there. Now, if they do that, and they do a CUP, I know we have the sidewalk to nowhere ordinance. Is there I'm trying to remember, is there a sidewalk in front?
There is not at this location. However, because they're going into an existing building, the sidewalk requirement would not be in effect.
So it wouldn't be, getting a CUP wouldn't affect changing and having to build, $100,000, $200,000 worth of sidewalk. Only if they're going to change the exterior structure, not the interior walls and whatnot.
Right.
Good.
There's a certain threshold. If they did so much site work, then we would be talking about a sidewalk.
Which would be good, because it's sad that there's been several private schools like New Covenant, James River Day School, other churches that have tried to expand. And when they tried to expand and utilize an existing facility, but make some modifications, all of a sudden they're hit with a $100,000, $200,000 bill that says you got to make a sidewalk. And a sidewalk that if it connected to another sidewalk, that would be understandable. But a sidewalk that connects to nothing is not understandable. So I'm glad this at least doesn't have that, and that's probably why it can be utilized. So thank you.
Councilman Missions.
So this is the Rivermont School moving in here, right?
Correct,
Where are they at now? Do we know?
They're located on a facility, or in a facility off of Old Forest Road, I believe, near the Kings Island. That street is escaping me, Fulton Street, maybe that area.
This is a pretty significant expansion for them, right? This is the old Hope Co. Church, I believe, if that's correct. Yep.
Yeah, they currently have about 45 students with 5 students on a wait list and project to grow up to 70 students here in the next 5 years.
And then it also gives a lot more land, it looks like, to expand in the future. Then this is great. I think this is an easy one. It's a good fit. And look forward to supporting this.
Seeing no other comments, again, this will be coming up in January. Thank you, Rachel. We'll move to roll call. Councilman Helgeson has slipped out. We'll go Councilmember Wilder first.
Yes, just want to thank all the men that worked with Mustangs for Kids. They raised almost $608,000 in less than 30 days. It's amazing. We had several city staff members to participate in that, so I commend the city staff members that participate in that project. I mean, it just shows how our community can come together, the great thing that we can do. So I commend them for all that. It supports about 30 plus charities to support children in our communities. So we really appreciate our community coming together to make a difference for that. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's it.
Councilman Dolan.
I don't have nothing.
Missions.
I think he's not in here, but my plan was to thank Jeff Helgeson, and he slipped out, So 20 years and 6 months is a long time.
We'll have an opportunity to do that.
That is a long time to serve, and I just want to, oh, here he comes. I'm burning up my roll call on you, and you slipped out on me. No, I just wanted to say 20 years and 6 months, it's a long time. Appreciate every impact that he's had for our citizens and in our city government. And also want to thank Ms. Dolan, Councilwoman Dolan, former Mayor Dolan, for her service to the citizens as well. That's all I've got.
Taylor?
Nope.
I have none. Councilman Helgeson, we skipped over you unless you had any. I'll leave that for- Next on the agenda, we have closed session. Bear with me. Consideration of closed meeting to discuss appointments to the vacancies for the Planning Commission, Lynchburg Regional Airport, Community Development Advisory Committee, Horizon Behavioral Health Board, Martin Luther King Jr., Lynchburg Community Council, Greater Lynchburg Transit Company, Lynchburg Redevelopment and Housing Authority, Lynchburg Parking Authority, Board of Zoning Appeals, and Business Development Center pursuant to Section 2.23711A1 of the Code of Virginia, 1950 as amended. And consideration of a closed session to review and/or evaluate the performance of the city manager pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, 1950 as amended. May I have a motion to go into closed meeting?
Second.
I have that as Helgeson and Mission, Wilder. Any discussion? All right, if we are ready to cast a ballot, we will go for it.
Councilmember Dolan?
Yes.
Councilmember Hipperson?
Yes.
Councilmember Missions?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Feraldi?
Yes,
Motion passes.
we are now in closed session.